everyone. I hope you're doing well. I'm Mrs. Sherman, and if you are new here, you can go over to the link that I'm providing here on the channel and listen to me there, where there is more on my post, so you can see the rest of the things I have, including photographs and lists and other things. And I also hope that you will leave a comment if you have time. I don't insist on it because I know ladies at home are so busy. Don't want to give them anything unnecessary to do on the computer. And so today I have, if you're new here, you kind of don't know the routine. Those of you who have been here for a while kind of know. The first thing I do is encourage you to bathe and dress in really fresh, clean clothing, something that makes you happy, and get your hair and skincare done, and act like you're going to do something more important than anything else, and you really are. And I have a lot of ideas today, so I hope you will listen carefully. I don't know if I can list them all, but the first thing we do is start with appearance, and the second thing is I'd like to talk a little bit about the home itself and making it better, and also then I kind of lapse into talking about people and relationships and things like that. So I'm going to start by giving you a glimpse of my teacup that I'm using today. I'm actually not using it. It was one of those telefloral gift cups, and I think I probably got it at a garage sale or Goodwill, and it's not really food safe, but I kept it because it's kind of a nice decorative item. It probably came with a plant in it in the olden days. I'm not sure what this dates back to, but they came in yellow, white, purple, red. And I decided I had a couple of them and gave them away as gifts. And I kept this one because it went with. And I am broadcasting from the manse, and this is one of the guest rooms in the manse, just a tiny room. And the children, my grandchildren, love to come and stay in this room. And you see in the background a really pretty quilt that someone made for me many years ago, and it has the same fabric in it as my dress. And so I want to show you a couple of things too. We'll call you back. Anyway, go get dressed and get ready and do your best. Absolutely do your best, and go in there and take with you some really nice music or something to listen to and get yourself in a good mood. So your appearance is so important, and I have discovered that I have to get dressed up, fix my hair and face, even if the first thing I'm going to do are my exercises, because for some reason I just feel more businesslike if I do it. If I do my exercises without really getting dressed and I've got my exercise clothes on, I feel kind of sloppy and I don't feel fresh. And I have tried it that way, but it doesn't encourage me. So even to do my exercises, before I even put on my exercise outfit, I will go and bathe and do my hair, do my face, and put some scent on and come back in, turn on my exercise program videos. I am doing Fabulous 50s, and I've been doing some of the chair exercises and the stretch exercises and working out some kinks out of my body and getting rid of some of the stiffness. And I really would encourage you to find something that you like. I don't always listen to the instructor. I turn it on mute because I don't care for too much racket in the background. They always like to have some kind of noisic, And so, but I really do enjoy it. And one thing I've noticed that I didn't know that I responded to so well is challenges. I had never really, growing up in the olden days, we were always given assignments. Well, now those are called challenges, which gives you more of a feeling of choice. Do I want to take this challenge or not? And this lady will sometimes have a 7-day challenge. I think she might have had a 3-day challenge and a 14-day challenge. And although I might not finish them, I just enjoy getting up in the morning and think, oh, today's 2. Let's go see what the exercises are today. It excites me. But you can also have other types of challenges too. You can have house cleaning challenges, art challenges, and I think I respond really well to those. I like having some kind of a challenge and a list. And you can challenge yourself and give yourself some things that, like for instance, getting up and getting dressed every day. Challenge yourself for a few days and make a list. And I've talked to you about lists before because I think it's important to write things down that you think of that you would like to do and things that you need to do, but I won't put a time limit on them because I can't discipline myself to do it within the time. It makes me cranky. And then if there's an interference, and I just get really upset if I can't keep up with my own rules. So I just put the list there and I go back to things. If I don't get them done, I'll go back to them, make a list. The night before I found is better because I don't wake up so uncertain. I know in the morning I want to do certain things. And so making that list is kind of a guide, and it is really good. It gives you some grounding. So give yourself some challenges and some assignments in the house, such as a challenge to do something like clean the fridge today. And so that'd be a challenge. And wear an apron. Get used to wearing an apron. When you do that, and buy something really nice. Buy a wardrobe of aprons. You can get sometimes 3 or 4 for a certain price. Buy a nice quality wardrobe of aprons so you have a clean one every day. In the olden days, the women did. Yes, I grew up in the 1950s, and the mothers that I remember had clean aprons every day. They had clean dish towels and clean aprons every day. It was just they didn't even think about it. It was just kind of assumed that you would have a clean apron and a clean dish towel every day. So think about doing that. Think about you might a challenge to get enough aprons that you could wear a clean one every day. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about getting your mood right for the home. And if you would like to get to work, I think that it's a good time to go to work because I will be talking now for a little bit. And one of the things I want to talk to you about, and I know I promised I wouldn't talk about this, but I've got to talk to you a little bit about the effect that the media has on us. Even what we call the good media or the Christian media, the conservative media, can keep you feeling uncertain and hyped up. And if you remember a few videos ago, I read to you out of this book called Adrenal Fatigue. This is something that the medical establishment doesn't recognize or talk about very much, but I'll just give you an example of what I know about it. Is that when you need it, your strength, your adrenaline will pump, and you could lift something off. Something fell on someone and you could lift it up because your mind and your body work together for good, and it produces all this great adrenaline and it gives you extra strength. So that being said, in reading this, I've always known this too, if you give your adrenaline to the hyped up, hyper worry and stress over the media, if you give them all your adrenaline, paying attention to them and use up all your adrenaline, then you're defeated. You're totally wiped out and you haven't got anything done. Now, I can understand giving your adrenaline to cleaning house or, getting ready for company and taking care of a child in the middle of the night. You're able to pull through. But if you give your adrenaline, if you give your juice to those people, to the media, to even some of the so-called benign media, they'll string you along for a while and sound real hopeful, and then one day they'll let you down, and one day they'll be depressing because they're all following a script that eventually will lead you down a path of despair. So if you give your juice to those people, you use up all your adrenaline, then you don't have any left to survive on. And one of the things it talks about in this adrenal fatigue is it has a whole chapter, a rather large chapter, on rest and how important good rest is. And so I was really interested in that because that is a way to, fill up your body with all the essential things that it needs. It restores it. It's restorative. So you need to restore your rest. So lack of sleep, they said, and you can lose your sleep when you have used a lot of adrenaline up, because adrenaline is also, isn't it interesting? Apparently adrenaline is also necessary for sleep and rest, even though it's necessary for energy, for the things that you need to do when in an emergency. And not much is known about it in the mainstream, but the lack of sleep, it says, it's an essential component of a healthy life. And if you have lack of sleep, there's probably something that you are using up your mind and your in a way your body, because if you feel your body stiffen up and you're nervous all the time and upset and you're breathing in a very shallow way, you're not really enjoying breath. You could be using up very needed energy, and it will cause you to have lack of sleep. You would think that it would make you want to sleep, but that's not the way it works. It says lack of sleep can slow down healing and prolong the period of recovery. And it depends on the person too. And chronic lack of sleep is a health hazard. You can't drive. If you haven't slept all night, you know better than to drive, don't you? And so sleep is a bodybuilding. You know how I love the exercise, and it's the bodybuilding, but sleep is also bodybuilding. It's very necessary. We tend to burn at both ends of the candle. We don't like to be lazy, do we? But there would be nothing wrong if your children wanted to go to bed at 6 or 7 at night, or if you wanted to go to bed. There would be nothing wrong with it. And a lot of people think, well, it's 6 o'clock and I'm tired, but bedtime's not till 8. But you find yourself coming down with colds and earaches and sniffles and things like that. You find that if you will replenish your sleep, you always feel a little better. Isn't that the way with sick children? After they've had some sleep, they seem to recover a little more each time. It talks in this book about how important it is to that it also lowers your immunity if you have lacked sleep. But even if you don't lack sleep, if you're using up your adrenaline on the concerns about the world situation, I wanted to tell you that really God did not create the world and people to be in a constant state of anxiety and chaos. What has happened to us is that we now hear about everything in the whole world all the time, whereas in the olden days you might hear something. We only had, some people had news about once a week, but we only would hear about what happened to the person down on the neighboring farm, the neighboring homestead, or we would find out that there was a fire down at the post office. And this was enough, you'd still get an adrenaline rush on things like that. But now we're hearing about every problem in every country 24/7, and if we decide to cut it all off, Satan makes sure that he sneaks in there and gets it in through something, in some way. And there's been a couple of times I've had to tell myself I don't want to hear it or listen to it anymore. And I told somebody the other day that was talking about, I forget what it was, some word that kept coming up, and it kind of gave me a little feeling of tightness in my throat. I'm trying to think what it was. It was, goodness. But I said, and it was a Bible word actually, and I said, well, if you're going to use that word anymore around here, I want to hear it from the Bible. Give me a Bible verse with that word in instead of using it all the time. And it was something that was real discouraging. So I think it's really important not to give the world situation or the media or any news you have, don't give it any of your strength. You've got to have your strength. You are really important, and they will run you. You know what? This old world, God created the earth, but the people that are running a lot of the government are very wicked, and they will keep you upset. They don't care about you. They don't care about your nerves. They will keep you upset and run you into the ground until you have no use, and so it's going to rob you of your health. So save your adrenaline for your family and for your home, and don't give it. Don't give it to others who want to talk about some upsetting thing. Don't give it to the media. And those of you who have children, it's really important that you insulate your home from this kind of thing, because if you practice maybe one day just going about a challenge, like get dressed, do some housework, and then do something creative, do something with the children, you're going to find your body relaxing and your health being restored. You probably think you're healthy if you're up and you're walking around and you don't have a headache, but that's not necessarily true. So guard your adrenaline, guard your nerves, guard your mind. You know, the Bible says, love God with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. And people that are religious, I'm a preacher's wife of 50 years almost, and I've noticed that religious people really understand loving God with all their heart, and they understand the soul. But when it comes to the mind, they think it's their area. And of course, if they're educated in a public school, they don't understand that they've been taught that the mind is for learning intellectual things and for absorbing knowledge. But when you study the mind, and I've been a homeschooler, and I'm homeschooling you too, when you study the mind in light of God's Word and why He wants us to love Him with all of our minds, what that does is eliminate some of this awful stuff that doesn't glorify God. It eliminates things that have bad values. It eliminates listening to and reading things that do not build the home, do not help your children, do not help you raise your children, do not help you enjoy your home, do not help you be creative and all those things that God wants us to be. It doesn't help you to see beauty in life. And God created this beautiful world for us to enjoy, and we should enjoy our lives. And so what does the media do? It makes darn sure we're not going to enjoy today. It starts you out first thing in the morning, and people check it like it was a horoscope and think, oh, how am I going to feel today? And when you start realizing that, then you realize, I'm not paying any more attention to them. They haven't done anything for me, and they don't help me get my work done. As a matter of fact, they could be robbing you of your financial stability, because people who are upset tend to spend more money or lack judgment in how to manage their money. Be very careful about that, because it's like someone who is feeling emotionally upset about something, so they want some kind of solace, and instead of going to the Lord. And so your mind, Satan knows that they can get your mind, and so this kind of thing, the worry and the using up your mind on the knowledge that the world wants you to have, isn't really going to get you anywhere. They're not going to give you a diploma. They're not going to pay you for paying attention to them, the media. And they are not going to give you some kind of award. They're not going to do anything for you. Now, so turn your mind instead to your children and talk about their life and their character and encourage them in their talents. Be constructive, not destructive. Anytime you've got your mind on that old media, and they're not going to thank you, they don't love you, you're giving them your mind, and that's not a good thing. And so I wanted to tell you what I was going to say. A challenge is to find a need that you can fulfill for someone in your family or any one of your choice, and do it. And I wanted to tell you what I have a granddaughter. I have several granddaughters, but this one decided she'd make an appointment with me to do a craft, and she had sent me, I showed you the unpackaging, and I pulled these materials out on this little craft that she was going to do. So we got together on the computer, and she said, okay, take this piece out and that piece out, and then we're going to paste this on and this on and this on. And what we ended up with, she gave me all the pieces, was a little stand-up card here of 3 little sparkly trees, and it goes with this room. And then when you fold it down, the trees are up on with the hill in the background and the beautiful sky. And so we spent a little bit of time. She told me where to fold and where to put there's a little raised piece here that this card stands on like this. Very simple. She made the whole thing up, but she and her mama have a cutter, have those, what are those called, cry-cut, and so she cut the trees out of that. But she made up the whole thing. It was her idea, and that's what it looks like on the back. But it's just so gorgeous. I have it sitting around here. And I was thinking she could do that for me again because I need to settle down. I need to sit down and do something. So I had to sit down. It's like my art class. You have to sit down. You've got your paper and your brushes around, and you just have to sit down and concentrate for an hour on what the teacher is telling you to do, or you won't get that painting. That painting won't go anywhere if your mind is way over here. If you're checking your your news all the time, and what a beautiful balm it is for you to do something like that. So that is, if you know, if you're talented, or if you are not talented, or just you know how to do something, you could spend an hour on some kind of program, computer, Zoom, whatever, and share how to do something with someone. And now my granddaughter sent me the supplies, but it's possible you could find something to do where you would have the supplies and send your friend or your grandchild or your child something in the mail, and then they could get it out and do it together. And what a beautiful, beautiful service this is. It's a ministry. And I just found so much joy in it, and gave me so many ideas. I thought that is such a good idea, and then I can show her something. So next month she's coming back, and I'm really excited because I don't know what she's going to have for me. It's February. You know, Valentine's in the USA is for everybody. Children adore it. Um, the women love it, the men love it, and it's just a big deal. They I think they almost like it better than Christmas, and people go all out with it. And so I got in the mail something that I had ordered. I wanted to show it to you. The title is unfortunate because it should say how to draw, paint, and craft. With someone or with your kids, but it was how to draw, paint, and craft with your creative grandkids. But really, as I went through it, I thought, you know, any child would love to have this as a gift. Just it has so many ideas in it, and it came from Current. Remember the Current card company? And it's just excellent. It's better than any of the school books. We used to order school books from the book club, and you'd get a couple of ideas in a book, but they really weren't that great. But this is really, really good, and I'll just show you a couple of things, because what one of us has not had a child on our lap, and they want us to draw something. And here's one. The first one is a hummingbird, and now some of them are cartoony, others are more realistic. Like there's a rabbit or a bunny, and so it isn't all animals, but and then have a cartoon section here. And then how to draw a face. Oh, that is so good. In fact, I think I'll get another copy of it for one of the grandchildren. Yes, this is excellent. And, or, you know, not everything is going to be suitable in a book like this for everyone. Here's one, how to make a mechanical robot out of stuff you've got around the house. But not everything would appeal to everyone, and it would be nice if you could maybe make a copy of the page you want to do and send it to them, and then have an appointment to come back. And our lives have got to be, we've got to be able to be relevant and to reach out to others. And even if you're a young mother, you can do this at home with your children. You have got to have more than washing dishes. You have to have something in which you serve with. And so this is also how to draw a person, and how to draw trees, how to make things with clay, and how to make paper mache, and how to build something with cards and cardboard. And they even have a city here that you could build. And it's with household items like a paper cup and a paper towel, empty paper towel roll, and paper plates, and 3x5 cards, and how to make a dollhouse, cardboard, and how to make paper plate flowers. Just interesting things. You know, if you ever couldn't go to the store and get party supplies, you could make those paper plate flowers, and you could probably get on Pinterest and just type up, you know, how to make paper plate flowers, and that would come up. But it's nice to have a book. It's just right at your fingertips, and it's kind of fussy sometimes to have to look on the web for everything. Then A lot of old-fashioned things here too. And let me see, there was something else. How to use different things for art tools. You know, if you can't find a brush, a paintbrush, all you need is a clothespin, and you put a little sponge, clamp a little sponge on it, and that makes a brush. Or you could even use leaves or yarn or cotton ball or bubble wrap. I thought that was interesting. And then they have in the back of this book is hand lettering, and that I just think it'd be nice just to send it to the children because it is so full of nice things. I would have loved to have had this when I was a kid. We had childcraft books, and there was one that was, oh, I think there were 12 in a set. They're kind of like a children's encyclopedia set. And one of them had in the back of them some crafts. And boy, I just was so drawn to that. And and to this day, I wish I could find it, but I don't know what happened to it. I never could find a reproduction of it. And how to paint with nature, you know, how to take a flower and dip it in paint and paint with nature, and how to use tape and string for things. Just so many different things in here. Relaxation, and also things to play with, like a little spinning wheel. And so it says how to draw, paint, and craft with your grandkids, with your creative grandkids. But I would just, to me, I think I could just get some of these and send them straight to the grandchildren. Then I would have a copy, and then they could tell me which one they wanted to do, and we could do it together. So encourage them to develop talents. You know, people are always saying, you know, I wish my grandkids did that. I wish my kids would, you know, do something with me or communicate with me. A lot of times because they are not mature, they're not going to think of it. They're not going to think of the needs of others. So it's up to us now to encourage that generation to be thoughtful, and we can do it by showing the example and be always the way you want them to be. Remember the example I gave you. Always live the way you want them to live. And don't give up on something just because they're not doing it. Just keep on. So encourage them to develop their talents. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about today is how to build your family culture. This is so important. You build your family culture by having your own sayings, by having your own habits. I talked to you about getting dressed. You know, if you could breed into yourself and to your children this wonderful habit of, in the morning, pamper yourself and get dressed. And you remember there was a book by Mary Kay Ash, that was her name, and she created the Mary Kay line of cosmetics. And someone lent me that book one time, and I remembered particularly a chapter on how she would not come out of her room when she was younger unless she was fully dressed and had herself all fixed up, because she knew that if she did go out of that realm and wasn't prepared, she would never go back, and she'd be like half ready. But it has to be, some of us never had it bred into us, because as soon as the sun hit the window, we were off and running to, you know, do farm work and all the things that needed to be done. And it's very hard to set aside that time. But if you could breed it into you so that you can't not do it. You know, people who are noble and brave and honest, if they could have, when it's bred into it to them from the time they're very young, cannot, in all good conscience, neglect it. They cannot ever, you know, go back on their own values. That's why it's so important, you know, for us to raise our children at home in homeschooling, because we can teach them good values and good character. And there are many books I will be sharing with you about that. So to build your own family culture, have your own sayings. And the way you collect your own sayings, ladies, is one of the children will say something or call something, and it becomes a family word. Now, I'll give you an example. One of the children was little, and we always fed him. We always gave him a bowl to eat. his food out of it. Everybody else had plates, and he had a bowl. And so we would, when it was time to eat, we'd say, you want to get up here because your bowl is ready. And so he would call everyone else to the table and say, Sissy, bowl, and he would call his brother and say, bowl, the bowl is ready. So now when I have lunch or dinner for my grandchildren, that one that used to call it a bowl, I'll say bowl. So there, they developed a culture. They developed something for their culture. And have your own sayings, your own jokes. Oh my goodness, don't ever look at that as nothing. Our problem is that we are so fed on the world's jokes that we think there's nothing else. But you can have your own jokes, and you can have your own sayings. And we don't think it's important because the media, I'm speaking of also film and entertainment, has us all thinking the same way. And so, because we have that in common, and we think of that as a joke. But there's nothing wrong with your own jokes. You can have your own poetry. You can have your own plays and dramas. And I don't mean drama in a bad way, but and your own stories. So pour out your encouragement for all of them and build them up. And so you can start it by saying, all right, let's talk about having a play. What would you like to, let's tell a story first, and let's turn it into a play. So you have to have a story, and then you turn it into a play, and you show them how to do that, and how to make a script, and how to act it out. And we never had, we didn't have to have our parents teach us any of that. We just automatically, when I was growing up, knew how to do that, to play act. And we spent many long winter hours when we were cooped up on the homestead playing like that. So pour out your encouragement and encourage love and loyalty. Now, I have thought of many of the things that happen in a family that breaks them down and causes great grief. And one of the worst things, I think, is disloyalty. That's when someone in the family decides they don't like somebody else in the family, and they go talk to somebody outside of the family and say, well, my mom and I don't get along, And there's not one of us that haven't had some kind of disagreement with a child or a mother, and it always comes back. It always works out. So it's foolish for these children to go around saying anything about their sister or their brother, because everybody has a little squabble, and they can work it out. And once it's worked out and you've told it around, the person that heard it will always be curious. How are you getting along with that person? And you'll be so embarrassed because now it's all worked out, and you're so embarrassed because you do get along. So sit back and think, and let your mind think about what you can do to build up your family and to make them loyal. And disloyalty is one of the worst things. Your children have to be warned constantly about it. You cannot be disloyal to your family. So I think it's also important in homemaking. If it's tedious, one of the reasons I have Homemaking Radio is because it's an isolating job. And being isolating and also repetitive you might start feeling your mind is rather dull. And that's why I suggest that you find something that stimulates your mind. It wouldn't matter what kind of work you did. Let's say you did some kind of factory work. And at first it seems real interesting, but as it becomes routine and you do it every day, then it feels like it's dulling your mind. And that's why you have to have a variety of things to do that you can look forward to. And I have figured out different ways, to clean the kitchen so that it's more interesting, and you can just relax for a minute, lean back, sit back, and think of, if you could have things the way you really wanted it to be, what would you have on your list tomorrow that would be extraordinarily interesting, that you would want to look forward to as a culmination of having your work done, something you really want to do that day. Think about that. Think about the most outlandish thing, and then figure out how you're going to do it. My dreams are always, how can I rearrange that, and how can I make this look like that? And I've got a vision for putting in a corner one of these children's tents that hang from a loop on the ceiling, and it's like an Arabian tent. You can open up, go in there and play, and I've always wanted to make one of those. I think I might do it. And it also be a place where I could store some things too. So let's do some challenges now. Let's talk about the home and what you can do. I don't love to clean the kitchen, but after it's cleaned, I'm thinking about what I'm going to put on that's going to make the house smell nice. And I think a good challenge for you now, especially you in the northern hemisphere, is to make a savory soup. Something that has all those good flavors. Of course, I'm big on turmeric. I just love a soup that has a lot of turmeric in it. And all the other things. Make a savory soup, and then exercise. Gonna give you that challenge. Exercise. Go find something to start out with. Find a beginner. I use Fabulous 50s, but I recommend it for teenagers. You couldn't keep up with this woman. And don't try to keep up with her. Just do a few things that she's doing. I've gotten to where I can almost keep up with her. But I don't do the vigorous exercise. I want to talk about that a little bit. I used to think that I could become fit and lose weight and be thin if I walked a long ways, maybe a couple miles, or did a lot of vigorous exercise. And I found out that's not necessarily true. And I tried it for some time years ago, and I did not see one single change in my stamina, in my strength, or in my weight. But when I started these exercises that I've told you about, started doing the stretch exercises, I saw a change. And also my appetite was reduced a little bit, and where I didn't really desire some of the things that make me fat. And also I think it also cleared my head. And so if you have any good experience with some of these exercises, these exercises these days are more sensible. I remember exercises classes in high school, and they were just terrible. They would just they'd make you so tired, because in those days I don't think they knew as much about physical therapy or how the body works, or the core of your body as much. So, and they put a lot of stress on the students, but these ones are very, very enjoyable. And it's always nice to exercise with someone who goes to an effort to make herself look nice too. So here's another challenge. Get out some tea things and set out a tea table and have tea on purpose. Do it on purpose and sit down, and I like to sit down with my list. That's my favorite way. So build your culture and do some challenges. Build your family, and also one thing you could do, they're not doing this so much, is take pictures and make an album, so that you have a history. You're creating your own history, your family history, and your own culture. And that's how you keep your nation's culture. It starts at the home. It starts with the family. So build your family culture. Don't look out there to the news media or anything thinking they're ruining our culture. We don't have a culture. You are the culture. And what you do in your home is really important. And that's what you have control over. So do that. Make your family culture, and get out tea things, set it out and have tea on purpose, and make a savory soup, exercise. Don't forget, get dressed, make yourself look good. Sometimes I'm tired from the night before, and I don't always get everything done during the day that I want to, but just getting dressed, and it just makes it so worthwhile. Every day is so special and belongs to the Lord. Another thing I would like to challenge you and challenge myself, these are all my own challenges, but I'm going to share them with you, is to start that art journal. Now, the way that I've never needed an art journal, because I wrote letters to people and I always decorated the letters. I would say things like, I went for a walk today, and I would sketch a little path. And I know these art journals, they take watercolor. Well, I find that a bit fussy for my lifestyle, so I have a nice pack of beautiful crayons and high quality crayons, and I like to color. You don't have to wait till they dry, and they don't make the paper buckle. And so I will say, it was a hot day, and we were at home, and we had the fan on, and I'll draw a little old-fashioned fan, or even make one and stick it on the paper, And so that's my art journal, is to write a letter to somebody with all these illustrations on them. But if you can get yourself an art journal, or make one, or just use some blank paper and bind it together, keep an art journal so that every day, I don't know if you wanted to research this a little bit first. Go on Pinterest and see what art journals are, and see if there are instructions. You can also go on YouTube and find instructions for a daily art journal, and check it every day and see what they have. Some of it's free. They do like to have a donation, which I think is nice. And see what they do. I know one teacher, I was listening to a friend of mine, she was telling me that one teacher just wanted them to go out and buy a piece of fruit at the grocery store and then bring it home and set it on something and paint it. And I thought that was interesting. Also to buy flowers. But once you get the hang of it, the art journal is something, it's like this card. It settled me down for about an hour, and I had to be quiet and not worry about, you can't, when you're doing things like this, you can't be having double-minded. You can't be thinking about anything else. And there, you accomplished something. So now, I would like to also suggest something to you that I think is really, really important. And then we'll talk about troubling people. Everybody always likes that. I don't know why. I have mentioned this before. It's called the Christian Charm Course, and it was written in 1960. Goodness, it was written in 1967, and it's been reproduced ever since. They have new editions, but it's the same one. There is a new one out that has a more updated people and clothing and stuff, but I prefer this older one, if you can find that one. And go through it as a woman at home. If you want to be influential on your children, or your grandchildren, or you're a teenager, I think you should put yourself through this course. It's like a correspondence course. You just take it, and you get an extra piece of paper if you don't want to write in the book, or you make copies of the page you're doing. So I like to preserve the book, so I will make copies. I'll make a copy of the page I want to do, and take yourself through this. It's self-instructory. It tells you how to develop your posture, how to sit in a ladylike manner, and how to look at yourself spiritually. And I got an idea from it years ago. I really think if you would like to order yourself one, if you could order one that says teacher's manual, it'll have both the student and the teacher. And I'll tell you something that I did with it one time. It didn't have it here, but it is lacking in some ways. For instance, I find the spiritual part of it sometimes not doctrinally sound, but the idea there, of course, is to examine your heart, examine your attitudes, and think about your relationship with God. Because we can't have just people who are interested in looking good without being good. And I remember I read somewhere where John F. Kennedy Jr. was interviewed. I might have even seen it. And it's some, major news media had interviewed him and asked him, does he want to be a great man? I think he must have been in his 30s when he was interviewed. And he said, well, that would be nice, but I think to be a good man would be better. And that really was so profound to me. So you get something like this, and of course, it's going to help you. It's going to help you look better, be happier, and, dress more carefully, look well groomed, look bandbox fresh. And it's going to help you. There was this one here where a girl was letting out, some bad words, and how that's the opposite of femininity. And yes, we can learn to have nice expressions on our face, and we can all that, but spiritually, you have to also cultivate the inner part and your relationship with God. And so, ladies, get yourself something like this and get going on it. Just discipline yourself to do it. It even has a section on how to talk to people. You know, it's so simple. It's only one page, but it's on how to be rude and how not to be rude, and what is rude and what is not rude. And I think it's really important to know these things because we are in the world, we're dealing with people, and at least you can prevent yourself from being offensive. We're always complaining, aren't we, about the way people are? And so now we're going to go to the people part here, and that is, having been a preacher's wife all these years, and I've had to go to a lot of ladies' things and noticed how some people aren't as polite as others, and particularly I want to talk about the ones that like to contradict. Oh, they just love to constantly contradict everything. And I used to play a game in my head and be quite amused, so that by the time I got to the event, I was thinking, I wonder what this woman can think about to contradict. And I was watching her with some other people, and she was asking me questions. And of course, the reason some of these people that like to argue and contradict will ask you questions is they're trying to find something that they can contradict. It's just like it's a lifestyle for them. Some of them don't realize that they are doing it. Some of them don't realize that they are being offensive, or that some of them don't even realize that it's not right, that is harmful to other people. It doesn't build them up, and if it aggravates someone else, you shouldn't be doing it. And so she was asking me questions, and I was answering them the way that, what was her name? Jane in Emma. Remember Jane Fairfax? And Emma was trying to dig and get some information about Frank Churchill, and she would say, does he live here, or does he live far? And she said, some say it's not far. Or is he a man of information? Well, some say he is a man of information. And when Emma was talking to Mr. Knightley said, how did you like Jane Fairfax? And she said she wouldn't tell me anything at all. And so this woman that's known to be contradictory was talking to another woman, and I was just kind of listening, and she was asking this other woman some things, and I knew what she was up to because she just couldn't exist. She grew up in a family like this. A lot of this stuff happens in childhood when it's not caught by the parents, or they're getting information from people outside of the home and developing these habits. And this woman was rather sharp all the time too. Someone could say something, and in just a split second she would say, no, it's not. So I was watching, and this woman was talking and answering questions, and the woman that liked to argue wasn't able to get her teeth into it. She just wasn't able to find anything because this other woman was so slippery, like Jane Fairfax. And so she kept going on and asking questions, and finally the woman said something that was truthful, and the girl quickly objected and quickly contradicted. And so this other woman began to laugh, and she said, well, what's so funny? And she said, I was just waiting to see how long I could take you till you contradicted me. And it was a kind of a funny and nice way, really, of making the other woman realize what she had been doing. And this woman also, it turned out, now a lot of times when you're having trouble with somebody, whether it's a relative, friend, or something, don't ever think that you're the only one, that something's wrong with you, or that you're the only one that she does this to, because she's probably having trouble with other people too, and they've cut her off, and now you're the only one left. You're the only target left. And don't ever think. And another thing that you should never, ever doubt, I am not good. I'm not worldly. I don't live in the world, and I don't smoke or drink, or do any kind of pharmaceuticals or drugs. But pharmaceuticals can have an effect on people's minds just as much as alcohol sometimes. But don't ever overlook the fact that some people have been drinking, and they may fool you. They hold it really well, but they become very argumentative, and or could be on some kind of substance. It's puzzling, isn't it? And it's very wearing on the nerves. Remember what I said when I first began today: don't use up your adrenaline. don't use up your juice on these people with this worry. We always want to fix things, don't we? And if somebody's mad at us, we don't want to go to bed at night on that. We really don't. But there are some people who will not let you go. They don't want to make it right. They enjoy making you miserable. They enjoy making you upset. And so I just wanted to show you that little trick where this woman just kind of, she decided, instead of being upset about being contradicted all the time or being argued with sharply by another woman, that she decided to have fun, a little fun with it without, she didn't try to hurt anybody, and she didn't try to accuse the other woman. It really doesn't do any good to confront people. I have never seen that turn out well at all. And I don't know why it doesn't work. Some people can be confronted, but even when you confront someone and you have to live near them, or they're part of your family or something, it always makes it worse, because the perpetrator of the trouble, the arguer, the contradictor, the one that answers sharply, the critic, they always add up the score. They always make a list in their mind. They mentally have a mental list of you and all these trespasses that you have created by confronting them. And confronting them is one. If you confront them, they consider that very offensive and an act of war. So I was very admiring of this woman who just was kind of going along giving these benign answers that this other woman couldn't sink her teeth into or grab a hold of to object. And finally threw in one that she could object, and then watched her intently and began to laugh. And the other woman, you could see that she was like trying to absorb what had just happened. And it wouldn't be till weeks later that she figured it out and saw herself, because these people aren't very introspective. The Bible teaches us to pay close attention to yourself, the Bible says. And even the Apostle Paul said he buffeted himself daily so that he wouldn't be a castaway while he's trying to teach other people. So you've got to constantly be introspective, and these people aren't. And they will tell you what a terrible person you are. They have memories like elephants. They can remember back to 1952, when just whatever happened. And I think the best thing to do with them is to distract their minds by asking them what they have been doing lately. What are you doing? They like to talk about what they've been doing. And get them to think about something else. Get them to have other goals. Now, of course, it's always best to distance yourself if you can. If your adrenaline tends to act up around these people, if you tend to get to where you're not breathing well and you can't sleep at night, it's probably best to distance yourself a bit and limit it. I have had to, a time or two over the years, tell someone, I really enjoy your company, but one of the subjects that you always want to talk about is I'm very allergic to it. In fact, I break out. And you don't have to tell them what you break out in, because you could break out in tears, or you could break out in sleeplessness, or you could just break out in hives, or just nervousness. But just say, I'm very, very allergic to that subject. I just can't talk about it. It makes me terribly ill. And of course, there are some people that would love it if you got sick or if they upset you. So you have to think carefully about these things. And one of the things that really helped us when I was homeschooling my children is that it was back in the day when you had to rent a big VCR player and lug it in the house. Those things were so heavy. And we rented our videotapes, our VHS tapes, but I always chose movies that had interaction between people. And one of my favorite for me, now this movie is not for children. I've mentioned it several times. There are two that I mentioned last time. One I mentioned last time was The End of the Sixth Happiness. And it has characters in it, and it shows how people interact. And then there's MAME, anti-MAME, and that's for people my age. It is not a homeschool movie, but it was one that was done with Rosalind Russell, and it was apparently written by her nephew, who she adopted. And it shows how she handled a couple of catty women who were out to get her because a man that they liked was more interested in her, than he was in them, and it just showed how she outwitted him. And then also when her nephew Patrick was uh, going to be was interested in a girl, and the girl, he brought the girl home, and she turned out to be quite a snob, and so she invited her back, and it was so amusing how she kind of tested this girl's humor. But that helped us a lot is some of the movies that we watched in those days. I think I owned two of my own and watched them quite intently for myself, and there were a couple that were for the kids, but they were how people interacted, and there were the characters, there were some of these sneaky characters, and there were some of these, well, of course the Bible is full of them. There's the Bible has the good parts and the bad parts, and so that's valuable too. And so dealing with these people is quite interesting. It can really tax your brain, but I think you should, if you could just approach it with humor and make sure that these people know that you have a life and that you're trying to do better. Now, one of the things that I found that worked was some of these people that want to argue and they want to contradict is I said to someone who was used to doing that, and we were in a group together. She likes to argue. She just loves to argue. She'll ruin any kind of tea party you have, or any kind of ladies class you have, or anything, any kind of get together where everybody else is just glad to see each other in front. She'll just ruin it. She asked me what I was, going to do on New Year's, and I said, I'm glad you asked because I've made some interesting decisions, and I wanted to share them with you. Maybe you could help me with them. I have decided to spend not so much time arguing, and so anybody who starts arguing, I'm just going to not answer. And so just so you don't think I'm mad at you or anything, if you find me being quiet, if you find me not responding, you'll know that I'm trying to buffet myself. I'm trying to show some self-control because I want to learn how to have a better character. I want to be what God wants me to be. I hope you understand. And it was so interesting to see how disappointed she was because she knew the only thing she has to do to talk about is to argue. So now this lady has to find something that's of value, that's of depth, that I would be interested in. It's the same with negative people that are constantly telling you bad news. It's just so bad, and they just life is just a gloomy, doomy thing to them. Is you have to tell them, look, I've made a vow. I have prayed to God this morning that I would not indulge in gloomy, doomy stuff, and then tell them some Bible story where God was not pleased with people who came back with a bad report. I think there is a script. I tried to find this the other day that I remembered someone saying that people have depressed our hearts and how God was just not pleased with that at all. So I just tell people I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to improve myself. I don't want to argue with people. I'm getting elderly now. I don't want to be known as someone who just contradicts and argues and speaks back sharply and has hasty, sharp replies. And I don't want to indulge in worthless conversation. I'd like to have conversation that is pleasing to the Lord's ears and that's edifying to other people and that builds other people up. Once I establish that, these people kind of drift away because they've got to find another target. They've got to find more fuel from someone else. And when they do that to you, they're filling their battery up by giving you bad news and by being critical and condemning. They're filling up, they get so swollen with the Bible talks about people that are swelled up with words and just swelled up with pride. But when you smile and when you relax and you bless them, they honestly, I think, get a little deflated because the only way they have been able to pump themselves up is with this criticism, with this constant criticism. Now, ladies, I've mentioned some interesting things, and I want to just, the light is getting bad in here, and I want to just go over it. Appearance first. Do your very best. Wear an apron. These are just challenges, and I'm challenging myself. The media, there's no terror worse than fear and worry. And that's what they give you. They're terrorizing us, you know. They're terrorizing. And I told you a long time ago when the mask thing first started, it's stressful and everything. I said they're not. One thing you can depend on is they can always be depended on to make things worse. They can always depend. I said it's going to get worse. And even after this current terror, they're going to think of something else, and it'll always be on the media. So there's nothing worse than fear and worry, and it robs you of your health. So save your health, save your nerves, save your mind for your home and for that which God has put you in charge of. Encourage others in your family to develop their talents and help them do so. If your family is not living the way that, if it's disappointing to you how your family is, then you live the way you wish they would live. Anything that you wanted them to do, do it yourself. Be constructive and not destructive. Be very careful to have good rest. Take a warm bath. Get into warm, you know, I have one of these radiator heaters, put my night clothes on top of it and my towel, get that all warm, and put on warm socks. Get into bed and read something nice and be happy. Make your list so that you don't have to be uncertain the next day. Then the other things were to make sure you exercise, make sure you think of something to do that is exciting to you. So list that too. Do something every day that's exciting to you, and get out your tea things and do tea on purpose, and make an art journal. I'll try to remember to put that all on the post. Ladies, as you can see, the light is fading, but my heart is not fading for you and all you do for me. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for your comments. And thank you for visiting. I'm just so honored that you came to visit. You know, in the olden days when we had to go and speak at a ladies' luncheon or somewhere else, it was a lot of trouble. We had to get ready and go and leave our family, or take whatever children that were old enough to go with us, and I had to, you know, kind of neglect my home. Well, now you can have one of these seminars while you do the laundry and while you do the dishes. So I appreciate you telling me what all you got done. I tried to make this long enough so that you could at least get one room done or sweep. And another thing I would really recommend sweeping is somehow sweeping settles the mind. If you sweep properly, and teach your children how to sweep properly, how to hold the broom at an angle, how to pull it. And I've seen some terrible examples of sweeping in the public. Oh my goodness. And so ladies, God bless you. Don't forget to pray and be sure to do all those things that I suggested, and I'll see you next time. Bye.